బ్రిక్ అని ఒకటి ఉంటుంది తెలుసా? బ్రిక్ బేసిక్ యూనిట్ అంటున్నాను కదా, ఫిజికల్ యూనిట్. బ్రిక్ తో స్టార్ట్ చేస్తాం కన్స్ట్రక్షన్ ని. By piling up thousands of bricks, we erect a post, this building. Yes or no? What is a basic building block of human body? Cell. Cell is a basic building block. Group of cells forms tissue. A group of tissues form organ. A group of organs form organ systems. A group of organ systems form human body. So it is starting with a single cell. Life started with a single cell. With one cell, we are starting this. With one cell. Life started with one cell. Who is giving that cell? Where is that cell coming from? Your life started with one cell. Where did you get that cell from? From parents? So, egg cell, sperm cell formed one single cell called zygote, right? So, we all came from this one cell. This one cell multiplied into multiple cells, and multiple cells start to form different organs, tissues, organ systems, etc. So how did this organization started? From one cell. Who told this cell? Who told this cell to multiply, to develop into heart, to develop into kidney? Who is telling this cell? Mother and father? Who is telling? God. Why cell is multiplying to a specific organ? Who is telling this cell to work in this direction? Who is giving that design of your face, nose, hair, skin color? Because this one cell is creating a human body with not every human body has the same features. You have different features. So where is that code or command coming from? Genes. So here you have a code, genetic information, which tells you, this code tells how your nose should look like, how your face should look like, how your hair texture should be, right? What is the color of your hair, color of your eyes, color of your skin, everything, all the information is coming from this code. Where is this code present in the cell? It is present inside the cell. So the cell is reading the code and accordingly it is manufacturing the output, the phenotype, right? So where is this code coming from in the cell? DNA or genetic information or genes means same code. Assume that we don't know what is DNA, we don't know what is gene. We know that there is a code in the cell and following that code, the cell is manufacturing. Where did this code coming from? Coming from? Let's not talk about technicalities. No chromosomes, no genes. Where is this code coming from? Who gave this code? God gave this code? Parents. Half of the code is coming from father, half of the code is coming from mother, making it a full code, right? So here, so in the egg cell, mother transfers the genetic information. So how does this genetic information transfer? How does this genetic information transfer? Suppose, assume that you have certain things in your home. You have to transport these things to a new home. How will you shift the things? Will you take each and everything No, you will pack the entire things into the boxes, carton boxes, and then you shift these carton boxes to the new home. Similarly, the entire genetic information in this cell is packed into 23 boxes. The information is packed into 23 boxes. Father also packed his information into 23 boxes. And all these 46 boxes are sent to the cell, zygote. Right? So these 23 boxes have the code. Right? Half of the information is coming from father, half of the information is coming from mother. So these 46 boxes are 46 chromosomes. Right? So these chromosomes have nothing but the genetic information. So this information will tell the cell what is the shape of your nose. So accordingly, the cell will manufacture the shape of your nose. It will produce your phenotype, your physical characteristics. Right? So what happens in this transport? While you're transporting your boxes from your old home to the new home, assume that boxes are broken. When the boxes are broken, what happens? The things inside the boxes will also be broken. That means part of the code is lost. There is an error in the code. When there is an error in the code, there is no output. When there is no output. So assume that out of these 46 boxes, one box is lost. So you will have only 45 boxes. What about the things in this box? Lost. So whatever the genetic information in this chromosome is lost. So assume that in this chromosome there is a code for your healthy heart. Code for your formation of the heart. So what happened? Now this information is lost. Now you will have a defective heart. Your heart will not function properly. Right? Or sometimes 46 boxes are received, but 2 boxes are broken. So the things inside these 2 boxes were broken. That means they are of no use. So the genetic information in that 2 boxes is of no use. So the cell cannot read it. Again, it reads the code error. Again, the heart is formed with deformities. So it is very important while transporting the DNA or the genetic information from parents to children, from parents to the offsprings. In this transport, if the number, there is an error in the number or error in the structure of the box, that results in the deformations, genetic disorders. Like the children may develop congenital heart diseases. The children might have small face. The reproductive organs might not be developed properly, right? Or sometimes they might have infertility issues. They might be sterile, or they might be born very short. There are developmental issues, mental challenges. So children are born with deformities. Like, see, you don't have, when one chromosome is destroyed, when one box is destroyed or lost, you don't have one symptom. You don't have one defect. There are several defects observed in the offsprings. We call that as syndrome. So how do you know why a person has a webbed neck, why a person has a heart disease, why a person has 6 digits, 6 fingers? So the reason is loss of genetic information during the birth, during the transfer of genetic information from parents to children. Look at this. You have a very round face. This is Down syndrome. When one of the chromosome has 3 copies. So instead of 46 boxes, you got 47 boxes. Someone else's box also you got 47 boxes. So the cell will read all the boxes, all the genetic information. It gets confused and result in a disorder. Down syndrome. So here, these are the symptoms. of the baby born with 47 chromosomes. Look at the head, small head, microcephaly, right? Look at this head. Look at the fist. Rocker bottom feet, they cannot walk properly. Cleft lip, this is also a genetic disorder. Count the fingers. This happens when 13th chromosome has 3 copies. We'll discuss in detail in the dedicated chapters. Cleft palate, cleft lip, right? See the chin, very small chin, almost receding chin. That is the reason why children are born with genetic diseases. When the genetic information is not transferred properly, when genetic information is destroyed or it is lost, these are the problems that babies suffer from. You don't have a single defect. You will have a whole range of defects, starting from developmental challenges, mental ability, they cannot grow in height. So reproductive organs are also not fully mature, right? They become sterile and several other issues. Hypotonia. So they have a weak muscle tone. They don't have strength. They can't even walk properly. All these are symptoms of genetic disorders. So why do we have genetic problems? What is the cause of genetic issues or genetic defects in children? Errors in the transmission of genetic information from parents to children. Whenever there are structural errors or numerical errors, more boxes or less boxes received, or boxes are damaged, then we get to see a range of genetic disorders in the children. And genetic disorders, the risk of genetic disorders increases if the mother's age at the time of pregnancy is high, because the eggs are exposed to more radiation and pollution. As a result, the risk of genetic disorders in the children increases. Understood? So how will we diagnose these disorders? There are certain methods mentioned in chapter 9.1. Karyotyping method. So here, father gives 23 boxes, mother gives 23 boxes. So this is the, look at this first box. This is the box from the father, this is the chromosome from the mother. Second one, second chromosome from the father, second chromosome from the mother. Is there any defect? Do we have all 46 chromosomes? Do we have all 46 boxes sent by parents? Yes? No. One chromosome is missing. We use a method called karyotyping. So this is a method where we figure out how many chromosomes or how many boxes are sent by the father and how many boxes are sent by the mother. So this is a karyotype of the kid, affected kid. See, till here you have 22 pairs. So how many chromosomes are there till here? 44. And look at the last pair. Only one X chromosome is present. Only one box is present. What about the next one? No, it is not present. So only 45. So one box is missing, resulting in Turner syndrome. These are the symptoms of a person whose X chromosome is missing. Do we have all the 46 boxes? Here, one extra box. This results in super female. It has the associated defects. Right? So this is how we use different methods. See, we need to get into the technicalities of these methods. Right? So then we will understand the defect of the person. So we have different symptoms. Assume that a parents brought a child to the doctor and they say that this child is not eating properly, is not growing in height, is not talking for his age, he is not playing actively. What might be the reason? What might be the reason? They'll try with the clinical methods. So even then the child is not able to learn, even then the child is not able to talk, even then the child is not as social as normal children. Then they go for testing, this test, karyotype test. Karyotype test will give the picture of this way. What are the chromosomes present in the child? So then they will identify which is the problem. Then they will identify that this is not just a normal problem, this is actually a genetic issue. Then how will you treat the genetic issue? You have billions of cells with the same genetic information. How will you treat? There is no solution for genetic defects. So every genetic defect will have a symptoms. So you have to treat the symptoms. You cannot correct the genes in the billions of cells. You cannot take each and every cell. You cannot go for gene therapy. What is gene therapy? Gene therapy is a method where we correct the defective gene. Heard about CRISPR-Cas9? Molecular scissors. We cut the defective gene, we remove that gene, replace the healthy gene. You have to do this for billion times. Billions of cells are there in our body. It's not possible. So we have to go for treating the clinical symptoms. Right? Some people who want to marry or who conceived a child, they go to a medical practitioner and they will ask, see, we have a disease in our family history. Some people will have a specific disease in their family history, like their father got the disease, their grandfather got the disease. So what is a possibility that our child will get the disease in future? So the couple who are expecting their child, when they go to the geneticist or any medical practitioner, that medical practitioner will draw a family tree. He will draw a family tree of all the relatives, like 4 or 5 generations before, and then he will assess which generations are affected, whether the disease is transmitting only to men or only to women, or the disease is seen in every generation, or is it skipping generation, and based on this analysis, he will try to estimate the possibility of that disease occurring to their future child. So, accordingly, if there is a 80% possibility that the child will get this disease, then he will recommend not to marry. If they married, then he will recommend not to conceive. If she is already conceived, then they go for genetic screening. What is genetic screening? They test the fetus in the mother's womb, prenatal stage, even before birth. In the mother's womb, they go for genetic testing, and again they will take the karyotype, and then they will find out we have amniotic synthesis, amniocentesis. So they take the amniotic fluid and they test. This amniotic fluid will have baby cells. So they take the baby cells and they will check these boxes, 46 boxes, and they will identify if at all there is any genetic disease, the same disease to the baby which is carried in the family history, then they will recommend. If it is fatal, if it is more lethal, then they recommend going for medical termination of pregnancy. If not, they will recommend, they counsel as to how to live with this defect. Like what are the treatment processes for the clinical symptoms. After genetic screening, they go for genetic counseling. Understood? See, I am giving you the broad picture. I am not getting into the technicalities. We will understand each and every process in detail. How these genetic defects are tested, how they are treated, what is gene therapy, what is recombinant DNA technology, right? Now we are not touching any technicalities. I'm just giving you a brief overview, that's it, right? Anyone from science background, medical background? Right. So this is called pedigree analysis, where we will try to estimate the probability of a disease to the prospective child. and accordingly we go for genetic screening and counseling. Right? Next. Nature. Right. Nature versus nurture debate. Important topic. So here we will discuss to what extent your genes influence your character or a trait, and to what extent your environment influences a trait. Assume that your father's height is 6'2" and your mother is 6 feet. The child born to them will have a gene which makes him to grow at a height of 6, right? Now he has the capability to grow tall. This is genetic. Now he has the capability, but I don't feed him food. Both his mother and father are died. He is admitted in an orphanage. Now at the orphanage, he don't get proper food, no milk, no nutrition. Will he grow to 6 feet? Will he grow to 6 feet? No nutrition, no milk. Will he grow to 6 feet? No. How will you grow when you don't have food? Food is a raw material, right? For muscle development, for growth, you need food. When you don't have food, how will he grow? Although he has the capacity to grow, you have to provide proper environment also along with the genes. Genes gives you the capacity. To reach that capacity, you should need proper nutrition. Nutrition is required to grow height, right? So assume that the person is intelligent, very smart, and he can solve anything. So now, for such a smart person, I put him in a stressful environment. Every day I'll beat him, I'll torture him, I don't give him enough space, no food. Will he remain to be smart and intelligent? Can he get good marks? No. Environment also plays an important role in determining the traits. So there are different methods we use to determine to what extent genes and environment influences a character. For example, take intelligence. If your parents are intelligent, can you guarantee that you will be born intelligent? Can you guarantee that intelligent people will have only intelligent kids? We also have a saying, Pandita Putra, right? Not necessary that the intelligent parents will have intelligent children. So intelligence is not purely genetic. Intelligence also depends on environment, right? Even the dumb parents can give intelligent children, right? Based on the environment and genetic. Both factors influence. Which factor influences more? To understand that, we have different methods where we study twins, identical twins and non-identical twins, to understand to what extent DNA and to what extent your environment influences how you behave, influences your traits, right? Why identical twins? Identical twins have 100% same DNA. So whenever they show any difference, that difference is because of environment. It is not genetic. If they are same, if they show similarity, they are 100% similar. See, identical twins, they have 100% same DNA. Same DNA. Now, twin 1 is intelligent, twin 2 is dumb. So this character, intelligence, is because of DNA or because of environment? Because of environment. If it is because of DNA, DNA is same. So there should be same intelligence, but one is intelligent and one is dumb. That means it is because of environment. Environment plays an important role or plays a major role in defining the intelligence. So we have different methods to estimate to what extent nature, DNA, and to what extent environment plays a role in shaping a trait. Right? Next, we talk about rules of inheritance. Rules. Father has a A blood group, mother has B blood group. and the child has O blood group. There are two children. They are confused. Take one more child. Who is their child? I told you 50% you get from your father, 50% of the information comes from your mother. Who is the child? Third? Who is the child? Two and three? Not this? Three can be their children. Yes. So, this is one case. And look at the third case. Father is short. Mother is short. 4 feet, 5 feet. Child born to them is 7 feet. How? Grandfather, 7.5 feet. In this generation, grandfather's height is 7.5 feet, and in this generation, no one got to that height. In the next generation, the grandchild is showing the trait of the grandfather. So what happened to the trait in the first generation? This trait skipped one generation, yet it is expressed in the third generation. How come? There are certain rules of inheritance given by Mendel. He conducted some experiments and stated that the trait which is hidden in one generation and which is expressed in the other generation is actually a recessive trait. Because it does not express when you have a strong trait. I told you, 50% of the information is coming from father, 50% from the mother. The information which is coming from the father is recessive, and the information which is coming from the mother is dominant. Let me give you one more example. Assume that your mother has a broad nose and your father has a narrow nose. So she gave this genetic information, broad nose genetic information, and also you got this narrow nose genetic information from your father. Which nose will be manufactured? Which one? Fight between broad nose and narrow nose. Which one will dominate? If broad nose is dominant, if narrow nose is recessive, this will be expressed. The cell will manufacture a broad nose. So he says that genes or the traits, one trait will be recessive and one trait will be dominant. So it is not expressed here. Narrow nose is not expressed here because it is recessive. It is not expressing in front of the dominant trait. But your child might get a narrow nose. It is hidden here. What if your child gets a narrow nose? It is expressed in your child. Understood? Yes or no? అర్థమవుతుందా? కాంప్లికేటెడ్ గా ఉందా? ఉందా? ఉండాలి యాక్చువల్లీ. See, you have to understand the technicalities. స్లోగా ఎందుకు అలా జరుగుతుంది, వాట్ ఈస్ ద రీజన్ బిహైండ్ దట్ అనేది అర్థం అవుతే then you will be able to understand clearly. But you will not understand physical anthropology in a single day. Because you should know what is a DNA, you should know what is a gene, you should know what is an allele, you should know what is mutation, you should know what is natural selection, you should know what is genetic recombination, you should know what is mitosis, meiosis, everything to get a comprehensive understanding. So make sure you understood the theme, that's it. right? So here in Mendelian genetics, he is giving the rules why parents or why children look like parents, why children behave like parents. There are certain rules. One parent is giving one code, the other parent is giving the other code. So both codes are competing. In such a case, only one code will be chosen by the cell. Which code? The code which is dominant. So in that generation, the other code is not expressed. But in the next generations, the hidden code might be expressed. So the grandchildren might look like grandfather, not like father. But father might not look like grandfather. Right? Understood? Right. Let me not complicate this. In chapter 9.3, we'll discuss about population genetics. In population genetics, we'll understand why certain types of genes or why certain types of characters are more dominant in certain type of populations. For example, consider we find broad nose. Broad nose people in Africa, narrow nose people in Alaska. All the Alaskans, they have very narrow nose, and all Africans, they have broad nose. You know nose, right? Broad nose, just it opens nostrils, and nostrils are facing down for Alaskans, and they are very narrow. The nasal passage is very less. Here the nasal passage is very broad in Africans. Why? Why? Climate? Because of climate? Because of that climate, all the people in the Alaska have narrow nose. What is the connection between climate and nose? Adaptation. What is the adaptation? What is the nature of air in extremely cold regions? Ela untundi air? Dry and very cold. Dry and very cold air, it disrupts the functioning of the respiratory system. Lungs ni damage chestundi. Lungs, for the normal functioning of the lungs, we need moist and warm air. You know the body temperature, normal body temperature is approximately 37 degrees. Right? So here you need warm and moist air for normal functioning of the lungs. Prolonged exposure to cold, dry air damage the lungs. So what happens? Narrow nose is the adaptation. So you have a narrow nasal passage. So when air enters the narrow nasal passage, it slows down and it touches the lining, mucus lining. This mucus lining has several blood vessels. Blood vessels, as the blood flows, there is more heat transferred. So that heat is transferred to the air. Now the air becomes warm and it takes the moisture from the mucus, and by the time it reaches the lungs, it becomes warm and moist, resulting in the healthy functioning of the lungs. So this is the adaptation. Maybe because of adaptation. Adaptation is one reason why certain populations have same traits. Africans, they have tall bodies, very long extremities, long hands, long legs, adaptation to hot climate. Right? They have to lose water, they have to sweat, they have to cool their body. Because the temperatures, outside temperatures are very high. If outside temperatures are high, the internal temperature also rises. When internal body temperature rises beyond 38 to 39 degrees, that results in heat stroke, organ failure and death. So you have to cool down your body. How body cools down? By sweating. So if you have more surface area, more sweating happens. More sweating, more cooling. So that is the reason why Africans have long extremities like long legs and long hands. All the Africans have long hands and long legs. Right? Or sometimes other reason might be inbreeding. People marrying among themselves. So whatever the traits they have, those traits are passed on to the next generations. You are not allowing new traits to enter by marrying outsiders. People marrying only within a caste group. What if that caste group is very small? Whatever traits that caste group has, if the caste group has only broad nose, all the children in the caste will have broad nose. The next generations also have broad nose. The other generations also have broad nose. Right? Because of marrying within group. marrying outsiders, what happens? You will introduce new traits into the children. If you marry within the close members of the family, we keep hearing that there is a probability of getting more genetic disorders. Why? Genetic problems ఎక్కువ వస్తాయి క్లోజ్ ఫ్యామిలీ మెంబర్స్ లో మ్యారేజెస్ జరిగితే. Suppose a family has a history of a disease. Hemophilia ఉంది అనుకోండి. Hemophilia is a genetic disorder where the blood never clots. Reason? Absence of a clotting factor. And that absence is because of a error in the gene that codes for a clotting factor. So here, that family has this history of hemophilia. So what happens? You have a defective gene and this defective gene is coming from father. Father has the family history and now this father is marrying an outsider. So mother has a healthy gene. Healthy and defective. Healthy gene expresses. The child is healthy. Now, this father is marrying a woman from the same family which has the disease. So she also have a defective gene. Defective. Child will get defective gene. So the child will express the disease. That is the reason why there is a more probability of surfacing of these genetic disorders. If a family has a history of genetic diseases, then it is highly recommended not to marry within the family members. The technicalities will look into the details in the dedicated chapters, how this happens. Right? Any questions? Rakesh? Understood? Next topic. Race. Race ante? How do you classify populations as a race? How do you identify a race? Based on? Based on physical features like skin color, height, stature, face, broad face, narrow face, long face, nose, broad nose, narrow nose, right? Hair, color of the hair, right? So all these are the characteristics or based on which we classify populations on the basis of race. Look at the face. The human race is divided into three major races: Caucasoids, Mongoloids and Negroids. Caucasoid, Mongoloid, Negroid. Look at the face. Look at the nose. Narrow nose, medium and broad nose. Look at the projection. This is called protruding or projection of the jaw, lower jaw and upper jaw. It is not aligning with the face. It is coming forward. Look at the stature. Stature is also a criteria that determines the race. Height. Look at the faces of Caucasoid, Mongoloid and Negroid race. Hair. Head. Eyes. Look at the differences in eyes. Skin color. Right. So based on the physical features, we classify human populations into different races. Then what is racism? Racism. Discrimination among race, racism. Discrimination ante bias, not treating equally. Why not treating equally? Why discrimination between races? Race is a biological concept. Racism is a social concept. Racism is a concept where one race believe that they are superior. Pure Aryan race. Heard about this? They believe that they are the superior race because they are fair, they are well-built bodies. So naturally they feel that they are the most intelligent and they have built the best civilizations. So this is a belief system. Belief that one's own race is a superior race and others are inferior races. And from this concept of racism came eugenics, where one race, one superior race, they thought that we are the only best race, so we have to eliminate all other races, inferior races. This led to genocide in genocide. The history cannot forget this. Genocide of Jews in Germany. Based on the concept of racism only, right? We belong to pure Aryan race. All other are inferior races. So we need to eliminate the inferior races. Even eugenics says that all the defective races have to be eliminated by killing them, by not marrying them, etc. Right, next. Next is the genetic markers, chapter 9.6. Genetic markers are those identity markers which tells us or which demarcates their presence or absence, indicate certain things. For example, consider hemoglobin S. This gene, if this gene is present, indicates that the population has sickle cell anemia. If this gene is not present, indicates that the population is healthy. Presence or absence of certain types of genes indicate a different thing. So, suppose if HBS is present, that means this population belongs to Africa. This person might belong to Africa. Why? In Africa, this gene frequency is very high. There are more number of people with these genes because this genes has an advantage. What is the advantage? Heard about sickle cell anemia? Winner eppadaina? Sickle cell anemia. Tribes in Andhra Pradesh are also diagnosed with sickle cell anemia. What is sickle cell anemia? RBCs? RBCs are in the shape of sickle cell. So what is the advantage or disadvantage of that? When RBCs are in the shape of sickle cell, so they die prematurely. They die very fast. Hemolysis happens. When the blood cells die, there is no blood. Lack of blood results in anemia. People die of anemia. And when you have both healthy cells and also sickle cells, that is a selective advantage. Why? In Africa, people have both healthy cells and sickle cells. One advantage of sickle cell anemia or sickle RBC cells is that in Africa, the prevalence or outbreak of malaria is very high. So this plasmodium, it lives inside RBCs and it will complete its life cycle in RBCs. It will replicate, reproduce, everything happens in the red blood cells. So when the red blood cell is in the shape of a sickle, plasmodium cannot survive in RBCs. As a result, that protects people from malaria. That is the reason why the people in Africa have both healthy cells and sickle cells. As a result, they have high survival chances. So when you have this gene, that indicates that you belong to Africa. Right? So presence or absence, it indicates something. It marks populations. It distinguishes one population from the other population. Right? For example, Asians predominantly have B blood group. Right? And Europeans have A blood group. Americans have O blood group. Predominantly. I'm not talking about different cases. right? Predominantly on an average, Asians have B blood group. Why? Why this distribution? Right? So their presence or absence marks something. Body fat is also a genetic marker. Body fat is also a genetic marker. The body fat number, what is body fat? Where is body fat stored? Which cells? Adipocytes. Heard about adipocytes? Adipose cells. The size of the adipocytes and the number of adipocytes is controlled by your genes, right? So here, body fat changes across different populations. Body fat changes with age. Body fat changes with gender. The distribution of body fat changes with age, gender and population. So body fat is also a good genetic marker that marks or distinguishes populations. Right, we'll discuss in detail how and why. Next, 9.7, ecological anthropology. Ecological anthropology tells us how humans respond biologically and culturally to extreme environmental conditions. Suppose you are planning to go for a trip to Ladakh, extreme cold condition, or you are planning to visit Thar Desert, extreme hot condition, or you are planning to visit Mount Everest, high altitude. So what do you face here? In Ladakh, extremely cold conditions. Your body has a normal temperature, that is 37 degrees, but here you have minus 12 degrees. What will happen? There is a heat transfer happening from your body to the environment. You are losing out heat. So when you lose out heat, when your body temperature falls, then what happens? You will succumb to frostbite. So to prevent this, your body temporarily responds. Your body responds temporarily by, how will you respond to extremely cold conditions? By shivering. You will shiver. Shiver is an involuntary contraction and expansion of muscles which releases heat. You have to conserve heat. Either you have to conserve heat in your body or you have to produce heat in the body. So because of this involuntary contraction and expansion of muscle, you are generating heat inside the body. So you are increasing your body temperature. So this is a temporary response. You cannot live in Ladakh for 100 years shivering. It is just a week. So you shiver and you generate heat temporarily. If not, if you have to stay there for 30 years, your body will go for adaptation. Your body will bring changes at the genetic level. So what happens now? Your body will start developing fat inside your skin, under your skin. Subcutaneous fat develops. Fat is the best insulator that will not allow the heat to escape out. So the heat is not escaped and heat is conserved. So that is the reason why people in the polar regions, they have more fat. They have round and stocky bodies. Right? They have short limbs. When you observe their limbs, short legs and short hands. So to conserve heat, that is the adaptation, long-term adaptation happening at the genetic level. And people also respond culturally. How? This is your biological response. Temporarily you will shiver and your blood vessels will shorten. They will become narrow so that blood does not flow to the extremities. Through extremities there is no escape of heat. And if you are living there permanently, then you will start developing fat under your skin. Subcutaneous fat develops, which acts as an insulator, protecting your heat inside the body. And what is your cultural response? People who are living there, they also try to conserve their heat through culture by building igloos. They conserve heat. They wear clothing also. They wear fur clothes to conserve that heat, etc. These are different cultural responses. So when you want to visit Thar Desert, extremely hot conditions. So here your body temperature increases. When your body temperature increases beyond a normal temperature, then you will succumb to heat stroke and you will die. So to prevent that, What is a temporary response of your body? You have to cool down your body. Sweating. Sweating is one immediate response of the body in extreme hot conditions to cool down your body. Long term, if you have to stay near Thar Desert for 20 years, then what happens? Changes happen at your genetic level, whereby you will develop long extremities, long limbs, lean body to escape more heat from the body. Right? Here you are not conserving heat. You have to lose more heat from the body. Right? Next, what is a cultural response? AC. You will build houses which has a cooling effect, which resist temperatures. Right? And you will wear loose robes. You will drink more water because you lose more water through sweating. Right? These are some cultural responses to extreme hot conditions where you have to survive for a long term. And when you have to live at high altitude regions, what is the problem? Less oxygen, shortness of breath. You don't get enough oxygen. When you don't get enough oxygen, that oxygen is not carried to brain, then you will die. You need proper supply of oxygen. So what happens immediately? Body start to pump more RBCs. Red blood cells start to grow. More RBCs, more oxygen carried. And you will also increase your breathing rate to take more oxygen, right? Your circulation system also fastens. More number of times the blood is circulated to the organs. This is short-term response. For a long-term response, what happens? It takes a change at the genetic level where you develop large lungs to process more oxygen, to take in more oxygen. So that is the reason why they have broad chest. People who are living, Sherpas, who are living at high altitude regions, they can live there without oxygen tanks because they have large lungs, right? So these are different adaptations, biological adaptations and cultural adaptations to extreme environmental conditions. Ecological anthropology. Next. 9.8, epidemiological anthropology. Epidemiological anthropology. It talks about health and nutrition. What factors influence, especially how your diet, your culture, environment, biology influence your health. Right? How diseases spread in communities. Why the Ebola spread was restricted to only Africa, while COVID became a global outbreak. Why certain diseases spread only in certain populations. What is the reason? Why malaria is restricted to African regions only. So here we will understand the disease spread and how your culture, your environment and your biology influences the spread of the disease. How your culture influences the spread of the disease. For example, you know about Ebola, right? It's a hemorrhagic fever. So it is contracted through direct contact. It is infected by direct contact. So the doctors, after the death of the patients, they have to clean the bodies. They have to cremate the bodies. But the cultural leaders, the religious leaders or the community leaders, they opposed it because they have to touch the bodies before cremation. That is their religious ritual. If they touch that dead bodies, what happens? The entire community will get that disease. So sometimes your cultural practices also increases the spread of the disease. Sometimes you are going for marrying within the family members. So what happens? Genetic disorders increases. So your culture influences the spread of sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell anemia is a genetic disorder that is increasing in the tribal belts of Andhra Pradesh because of marrying within their own communities, marrying within their family members. Right? So your culture influences the spread of a disease. Your food or your sanitation, drinking water, all these influences the spread of a disease. Suppose you drink water from the river and that water is coming from a mine, then will it influence the spread of the disease? Yes. And that water has mercury. Then what happens? The populations, all the people who are consuming, who are drinking that water will get Minamata disease. Right? So your culture, your diet, your food practices, your water or sanitation, all these influences the spread of a disease. How you understand the disease? also influences. For example, there is a disease like cholera. There is a cholera outbreak in the tribal village. But people believe that that is an evil spirit causing the disease. They don't go for treatment. They go for sacrifices. Will it solve the problem? No, it will not solve the problem. So how you perceive, how you understand the disease is also important to curtail its spread, to stop its spread. Right? This is what epidemiological anthropology studies. Understood? అలా బ్లాంక్ ఫేసెస్ పెడితే నాకేం అర్థం కావడం లేదు. అర్థమవుతుందా మీకు? రైట్? నెక్స్ట్ we go for chapter 10. Stages of growth. We have prenatal stage, natal stage, infancy, childhood, adolescence, adulthood and old age. So at all these stages there are certain milestones that we have to achieve. For example, infancy starts from 0 to 2 years. So for 6 months we are expected to sit, and for 8 months we are expected to crawl. That is a milestone. And for 12 months we are expected to walk, and for 13 months we are expected to talk. For 4 months we are expected to recognize the face. So these are different milestones that humans have to achieve during their stages of the growth. If these milestones are not achieved, that means there is a problem in the biology, or there is a problem in the environment, or there is a problem in the culture. And hence again you have to go for genetic screening and counseling. You have to go to doctor. These milestones are very important. So we will understand what are different milestones at different stages of human growth and development. Chapter 10. Right? Next, somatotyping. What is somatotyping? Soma means body. We will classify human bodies into different types on the basis of muscle, on the basis of fat, on the basis of body build-up. These are 3 different body types on the basis of this person is lean and long. Right? Look at this person. This person is muscled body and medium stature. And this person, stocky and round body, more fat composition. So accordingly, we classify the people into body types. So this is called ecto, meso and endomorphs. So why is this classification important? Look at this classification. So we have different thinkers who gave their own classification. Picnic body type, athletic body type and leptosome. Picnic, very round body. Athletic body type, muscled body. Leptosome, lean body. So why these body types are important? Sports anthropology. Which body type suits which sport? So tall stature with heavy weight, they go for this type of sports. They give good performance in this type of sports. Application in the sports anthropology, somatotyping. Right? So they will find out, and accordingly, nutritional requirements are also assessed based on the body type to get the output, to get best performance. Right? Now this person, tall and with heavy weight, he cannot go for football. Right? It requires a different body type. Somatotyping. We classify the bodies based on their appearance, especially based on the composition and functional ability. Right? Next, chapter 11, we talk about menarche and menopause. Menarche, basically we are talking about population. Population fertility, population growth or decline of the population depends on fertility levels, and fertility levels are in the hands of women, and women have a reproductive window. Women are not reproductively active throughout their lifetime. There is a window. There is a specific age. Between that age only women are reproductive. They are reproductively active. So that reproductive window starts with menarche, the onset of menstruation, and it ends with menopause. So menopause stops. menstruation. Between menarche and menopause, women are reproductively active. And during that period, women have the optimum capacity to bear children. That is called fecundity. But women only give birth to 2 or 3 children. That is called fertility. For several reasons, the fertility is controlled. Right? So we will understand why populations grow, why populations decline, why birth rates increase, why birth rates fall, depending on, see, there are certain theories, like we have a theory by De Castro or Thomas Doubleday. They say that high protein consumption in a population increases fertility levels in women. Yes, there are certain theories. Population density also, it reduces the population, it reduces fertility in women. Right? He talks about social factors, economic factors. There are several theories that determine the fertility levels, that determine the growth and decline of populations. That we'll discuss. Next, chapter 12, we talk about applications of anthropology. First application, sports anthropology. Which body type suits which type of sport for best performance? Next, nutritional anthropology. Nutritional anthropology, it talks about how factors like culture, how factors like diet, culture, environment, biology influence nutritional level of the population, influence nutrition and health of the population. Give me one example how diet influences the nutrition of a population. There are certain populations who consume only vegetarian food. Populations who consume only vegetarian food, because culture tells them that you have to take only vegetarian food, no non-vegetarian food. Vegan cultures, no animal-based products should be consumed. You know B12, vitamin B12? Vitamin B12 comes from animal-based food. So when you consume only plant-based food, then what happens? You will be diagnosed with vitamin B12 deficiency, pernicious anemia. So here the diet pattern is influencing your nutritional status. Your culture influences nutritional status. In some cultures, women have to eat at the last, after men have completed their meals. After men complete their meals, what is left? Some leftovers are left. So that is the reason why women in many societies are anemic, malnourished, due to lack of whole diet. They have to eat whatever is left. Environment, the climate also influences the nutrition and health, right? Biology also influences your nutrition and health. If you are malnourished, then you have less immunity. When you have less immunity, then even a common cold can kill you. Your susceptibility to a disease increases. You will catch the disease very easily and you die even by a common cold. If immunity is less, immunity is dependent on your nutritional status, and nutrition is dependent on all these factors. So this is what nutritional anthropology studies. Right? Next, anthropology in law. Application of anthropology in law. Application to the questions of law. Forensic anthropology. So forensic anthropology helps to solve the questions or the problems or the crimes in law. Right? For example, suppose you found a skeleton. First you need to identify whether the skeleton belongs to human or animal. Right? So based on certain criteria, you will realize that the skeleton belongs to human. Then you need to identify whether the skeleton belongs to man or women. There are certain markers that indicate whether the skeleton belongs to man or women. One such factor, pelvis. Women's pelvis is wider than the man's pelvis. This is one such factor. There are many such things, right? So based on that, they will identify, and you also have to identify the age of this person by finding By heard about bone ossification centers, bone testing, right? With the bone test, you will identify the age of the skeleton also. Right, next. Next application of anthropology is paternity testing. So suppose a father has a suspicion whether the child belongs to him or not. Then they go for DNA profiling. This is the output. Now tell me, who is the father of the child? Male 1 or male 2? Clearly, I told you 50%. Don't forget the basics. 50% from mother, 50% from father. Who is the father? So out of this, these 3 blocks belongs to female. And what about these 2? These 2 blocks are coming from, these 3 blocks are coming from mother. These 2 blocks are coming from father. Mother doesn't give you these 2 blocks. That means these 2 blocks should be given from father. He gave these 2. Right, next. This block is coming from mother. So this block must come from father. This block is coming from mother. That means this block has to come from father. Who is the match? Second one. So this is a DNA profiling method. This is the output. We will see the procedure, how we derived till here. Right? So we are not getting into technicalities now. This is how paternity diagnosis happens, to test who is the father of the child. So this is physical anthropology. Up to chapter 12. Most important, and people feel that this is difficult because they lack basics. They don't know basic terminologies. They don't know what is a chromosome. They confuse between DNA and gene. DNA is not gene. Gene is a part of DNA. We have approximately 30,000 genes in the DNA. Rest everything is scrap. Right? And that scrap is utilized. See, only 1% of our DNA is used to identify a specific individual. Very less portion of DNA is utilized to identify a specific individual. Rest 99% of the DNA of every human being is same. 99% of every individual is same. Only 1% you have a difference, and with that 1% we identify the individuals. That is why we call it as a fingerprint, DNA fingerprint. Just like how fingerprints are unique, DNA also has certain part which is unique to humans. Any questions? What do you think about physical anthropology? Technical but interesting if you understand the basics. If you have the clarity about the basics. You should know the difference between nucleus. You should know the difference between cell. You should know the difference between somatic cells, and you should know the difference between egg cells. Not every cell is used in the fusion. Only there are certain cells, reproductive cells like egg cells and sperm cells used for reproduction. You should know the basics like mitosis, meiosis, what happens in mitosis, what happens in meiosis. See, 2 siblings, they have the same parents, yet 2 siblings, they are not 100% identical. Why? They have the same parents, right? But why are not? Why they are not? Why they don't look similar? Same father, same mother. Then your brothers, both the brothers should look alike. No, they don't look alike. They should have same 100% DNA similarity. No, that is not the case. Why? We'll study. Right? Any questions? Prithvi, any questions? So which is easy, socio-cultural or physical anthropology? What do you think? Socio-cultural is easy. Which is interesting? Which is interesting? Socio-cultural or physical? Physical is interesting. You know, this is more scoring. Physical anthropology is more scoring. And that is the reason why many of the students, they leave out because they don't have conceptual clarity regarding physical anthropology. Everyone will do well in the socio-cultural anthropology. But what about physical anthropology? To write answers in physical anthropology, you should have a strong foundation. Without strong foundation, you cannot write answers. You can only rote learn. And that memory doesn't last longer. Right? So we'll continue tomorrow with one more interesting theme, that is archaeological anthropology. Right? We'll talk about our early hominid ancestors. Thank you.